Chinese state media reported that Canadian businessman Michael Spavor was being investigated by the Dandong City branch of China's Ministry of State Security, and the probe started on December 10. In this file photo taken on January 13, 2014, Michael Spavor walks with former U.S. basketball player Dennis Rodman, not in picture, as they are surrounded by the media after arriving at Beijing International Airport from North Korea. AFP archive: a second Canadian who had gone missing in China is under investigation on suspicion of engaging in activities that harm China's national security, state media reported on Thursday. Michael Kovrig, a former Canadian diplomat, was detained by Chinese state security on Monday in Beijing, according to his employer, the International Crisis Group think tank. Kovrig, too, is suspected of engaging in activities that endanger China's national security, according to a report on Wednesday by Beijing News, a local newspaper. Michael Spavor was being investigated by the Dandong City branch of China's Ministry of State Security, and the probe started on December 10, according to a government news agency in northeastern Liaoning province. We have been unable to make contact with Spavor since he let us know he was being questioned by Chinese authorities, Global Affairs spokesman Guillaume Barabe said. We are working very hard to ascertain his whereabouts, and we continue to raise this with the Chinese government. Spavor is a fluent Korean speaker with long-standing ties to the North through his company, Pike 2 Cultural Exchange. He was instrumental in bringing NBA player Dennis Rodman to Pyongyang in 2013 and has organized a number of tours and joint cultural projects with the North since then. He is one of the only Westerners to have ever met North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Chinese media urges Canada to defy U.S. The U.S. accuses Huawei of using a Hong Kong shell company to do business with Iran in violation of U.S. sanctions. Canada should distance itself from U.S. hegemonism and grant unconditional freedom to Meng Wanzhou, state-owned tabloid Global Times said in a Thursday editorial. Canada should distance itself from U.S. hegemonism and fulfill its obligations to help maintain international order and protect human rights, it read. Canada-U.S. trade talks. The U.S. and China have taken pains this week to emphasize that their trade talks are entirely separate from the U.S. case against the top Chinese technology executive. But with a few words, President Donald Trump obliterated the distinction on Tuesday, saying he'd wade into the case if it would help produce a trade agreement with China. If I think it's good for what will be certainly the largest trade deal ever made, which is a very important thing, what's good for national security, I would certainly intervene if I thought it was necessary, Trump told Reuters in an interview. The comment suggests Meng could be a political pawn in negotiations and makes things more awkward for Canada, which arrested her on America's behalf during a December 1 layover at the Vancouver airport. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau bristled at Trump's assertion, saying, regardless of what goes on in other countries, Canada is, and will always remain, a country of the rule of law. Freeland said it was quite obvious any foreign country requesting extradition should ensure the process is not politicized. Canada has also asked China for extra security at its embassy because of protests and anti-Canadian sentiment, and has advised Foreign Service staff to take precautions, a senior Canadian official told reporters. Ceasefire and trade war. Meng's arrest came the same day that Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping agreed over dinner in Buenos Aires to a 90-day ceasefire in a trade war that has shaken global financial markets and raised worries about the impact on the world economy. The truce was meant to buy time for more substantive talks over U.S. allegations that China steals U.S. technology and forces American companies to hand over trade secrets in exchange for access to the Chinese market. U.S. officials have insisted the sanctions case against Meng had nothing to do with the ongoing trade talks. Top White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow told Fox News Sunday that there's a trade lane and there's the law enforcement lane. They are different. Both Canadian and American officials have emphasized that the Meng arrest is separate from the trade talks, said Gregory Yeager, special counsel at the Strzok law firm and a former Justice Department trial attorney. Trump's remarks could be interpreted as creating the appearance that the arrest also had political motivations. This could undermine the U.S.'s reputation as a country that follows the rule of law, and could ultimately undermine both the Meng prosecution and the trade talks. Still, there is precedent for Trump intervening on behalf of a Chinese company accused of violating U.S. sanctions. Trump drew fire from Capitol Hill in June when he reached a deal that spared another Chinese telecommunications company, ZTE, from U.S. sanctions that probably would have put it out of business after it was accused of selling equipment to Iran and North Korea. U.S. regulators planned to bar it from receiving U.S. components that it depended on, effectively a corporate death sentence. But Trump issued a reprieve, perhaps partly because U.S. tech companies, major suppliers to ZTE, would also have been scorched. ZTE agreed to pay a $1 billion fine, change its board and management, and let American regulators monitor its operations. Speaking outside the White House Wednesday, Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross urged reporters not to jump to the conclusion that Trump will actually intervene in Meng's case. "Let's see what he actually decides," Ross said. "Let's see where we go from there." Philip Levy, senior fellow at the Chicago